there's nothing that we do here that I can't go into the scriptures and say, look at this passage, put flesh and blood on it. Don't read it as words on paper. If you read the Bible that way, you're wasting your time. As I sat this morning in my devotions and my Bible reading, there's stuff that I do to study, and there's times that I just read in my personal devotions. I read the passage anew, again. The first battle waged in the wilderness way, Moses and Aaron and Hur. And it dawned on me as I was reading this. You know, you can get to the point where you feel like there are Aaron and Hurs of this ministry who are there. They have been holding up my arms. And believe you me, what I like about that passage is it illustrates that Moses wasn't above other people in that he got tired and he got weak and he got worn down. And any true person of God faces that in their heart and says, I need someone to support me. It's why we have the passages regarding husbands and wives. Not because Paul was a busybody, but this is the support system. This is the structure that keeps everything going and in line. Aaron and Hur had to do their part. I remember Dr. Scott many times teaching on Aaron and Hur. And I remember him telling me how sometimes he felt, with as many king's houses as listened to him back then, he sometimes felt like he was Moses, Aaron, and Hur all together, having to do it all. Having to be strong for you and having to go up there and hold up the rod of God. And it doesn't work that way. That's why these passages are not meant for our entertainment. They're not meant for us to read and say, oh, that's a good Bible story. They're meant to instruct us as to what we are to do as a type and pattern. You are my Aaron and Hurs. I cannot do it alone. Only a person so full of pride would say, I can do it by myself. You know, it's a terrible thing to have to come to a place where you say, you need other people. Except when it comes to God's work. If you need other people to get by, you're leaning on the flesh, and we're told to know no man after the flesh. But when it comes to God and God's program, God didn't call Moses and say, go build me a tabernacle, and don't ask the people to bring anything, and don't ask them to participate, and don't ask them to move the tent, and don't ask them to do certain things. It required people called of God, called for such a time. Just take the tabernacle time. They were called for that time. I think we have a record for our rebuke, our reproof, for instruction, so that we might not walk down the same path. There are paths illustrated for us, so self-evident, given for our instruction, mind you, if we'll just follow. It doesn't mean follow perfectly. It just means follow obediently. You know, Mom said, don't touch the hot stove. And probably most of us still went and touched the hot stove. At some point you come to the gnosis that when Mom said don't, she was probably right. You only did it once or twice, and then you listened. How much greater God when He says don't or do. Not in perfection, but in trust. So that's what I'm searching for. I was pleased to know that there were people last night that responded. I was pleased to know that, but I cannot give up right now and say, well, we had a response last night, let's just move on. Drafted for the duration, but Lord, please don't make it so difficult, right? Yeah? And then every once in a while you come to your sanity and say, I wonder if Jesus uttered those words while He was facing the cross. It only got more difficult for him. And even on the cross, the words he uttered still resonating abundantly clear. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Now that's Jesus. I can't utter those words. We have an example. I'm asking you tonight to do your part. If you care as much as you cared in times past, perhaps the care you need to show now is more so than in times past, because there are many things weighing in the balance tonight. I'd go so far as to say, through this very crucial period, you can call me names and cuss me out after we go to music, but I'm going to tell you something. The Bible shows me a very great lesson. Every single person will stand and give account. And that's not just of the things when it says in the body and out of the body. It's of your stewardship as well, what you were entrusted with. Not just, people talk about behavior. God's really not so concerned about behavior. He knows our nature. He knows our fallen condition. He knows our imperfections. But our stewardship. That's why there's so many passages in the Bible that speak about stewardship. Each will give account. I just pray I don't have to subject myself or the faithful ones to listening to perhaps what might be the greatest amount of excuse-making when those who have to stand and give account of why they didn't. You were called to the kingdom, just as I was. You were called to the kingdom for this hour. I'm not going to let you get away with saying, I can't, or make another excuse, or put it off for another day. I want your commitments tonight, starting right now.